Good evening, YouTube fiends. Jayson, son of Jayson here, and promoting the new Cask Studios YouTube channel. To celebrate that and the launch of a subsequent clothing line, we are reading Edgar Allan Poe. The Cask of Amontillado. The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You who so well know the nature of my soul will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was a point definitively settled, but in the definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is undressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally undressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor by need had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared, he prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit their time and opportunity. To practice imposture upon British and Austrian millionaires. In painting in Germany, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack, but not in a matter of old wines he was sincere. In this respect I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself and bought largely wherever I could. It was about dusk one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had a tight-fitting pair of striped dress, and his head was surmounted by a comical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I have received a type of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado, a pint impossible, and in the middle of the carnival." "I have my doubts," I replied, "but I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain. Amontillado? I have my doubts. Amontillado? And I must satisfy them. Amontillado? As you are engaged, I am on my way to Luesi. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me, Luesi cannot tell Amontillado from cooking sherry. And yet some fools will have it in his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go. Whither? To your vaults. No, my friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Luesi, no, I have no engagement. Come. My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitrate. Let us go, nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado! You have been imposed upon, and as for Luesi, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado. Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm. Putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a recoil closely about my person, I suffered him to hurry me to my plaza. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient. I well knew to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux, giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites rooms to the archway that led to the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. In the gait of my friend was unstayed, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," said he. "It's farther on," said I. "But observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls." He turned to me and looked into my eyes with 2 filmy arms that distilled the rheum of intoxication. "Nitre?" he asked at length. "Nitre," I replied. "How long have you had that cough?" "Ugh, ugh, 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 ugh." My poor friend found it impossible to rely for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. "Come," I said with decision. "We will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy as I once was. You are a man to be missed. For me it is no matter. We will go back, you and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lueshi." "Enough," he said. "The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough." "True, true," I replied. "And indeed I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But we should use all proper caution. A draught of this Murdoch will defend us from the damp." Here I knocked the neck off a bottle, which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mould. "Drink," I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly while his bells jingled. "I drink," he said, "to the buried that repose around us." "And I to your long life." He took my arm again and we proceeded. "These vaults," he said, "they're extensive." "The Montresors," I replied, "were a great and numerous family." "I forget your arms." "A huge human foot d'or in the field of azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel." "And the motto?" "Nemo me impune lasset." "Good," he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Murdoch. Then we had passed through the walls, become piled bones of casks and ponchions intermingling into the inmost interesting recesses of the catacombs. I paused again. At this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by the arm above the elbow. "The nitre," I said. "See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back ere before it is too late." "Your cough." "It is nothing," he said. "Let us go on, but first another draught of the Murdoch." I broke and reached him a flagon of De Grave. He emptied it at breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He drew and threw the bottle upwards with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the moment, a grotesque one. "You do not comprehend," he said. "Not I," I replied. "Then you are not of the Brotherhood." "How?" "You are not of the Masons." Yes, I said. Yes. "You? Impossible. A Mason?" "A Mason," I replied. "The sign?" he said. "It is this," I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my reliquoire. "You jest," he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces. "But let us proceed to the Amontillado." "Be it so," I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak, and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descending again arrived at a deep crypt, which in the foulness of the air caused our flambeau rather to grow than to flame. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared another less suspicious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of this interior crypt were ornamented in this manner. 4 of the bones had been thrown down and lay upon precariously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior recess, in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacomb, and was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull touch, endeavored to pry into the depths of the recess. Its determination the feeble light did not enable us to see. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lueschi, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche. Finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these deepened a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Pass your hand, I said. Over the wall you cannot help feeling the nitrate. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No, then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you that little attentions in my power. The Amontillado, ejaculated my friend. God, he actually said that. Not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied, the Amontillado. As soon as I said those words, I bruised myself among the pile of bones for which I had been spoken. Throwing them on the side, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials at the aid of my trowel, I began to vigorously wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of my masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low mourning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and the third and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which I might hearken to it with more satisfaction. I ceased my labours and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel, and finished without interruption the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, holding the flambeau over the masonwork. Threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams burst suddenly from the back of the chained form. He seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recess, but the thought of an instant reassured me. I had placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided, I surpassed him in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamor grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially into its destined position, but now there came from out of the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. Though I said, "Ha ha ha, hee, a very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it in the palazzo, over our wine, The Amontillado," I said. "Yes, the Amontillado. But it is not getting late. Will they not be awaiting us in the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato in the rest. Let us be gone." "Yes," I said, "let us be gone." "For the love of God, Montresor." "Yes," I said, "for the love of God." But to those words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, "Fortunato." No answer. I called again, "Fortunato." No answer still. I thrust the torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end to my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up against the new masonry. I re-erected an old rampart of bones. For the half of a century no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiesced. And there you have it. Oh God. Oh, that hurt me just getting through all that. I have a terrible fear of public speaking, you know. But subscribe to Shaggy the Writer's channel for more live readings. And subscribe to Against the World G. Be on the lookout for fresh vintage, fresh wear clothing. And make sure to hit the like button. And there's also possibly a new studio in town with new Jayson content, perhaps. I don't know. Perhaps you need to check in with Against the World G. One love, fan base.